is the Brenda Lee Show. The Brenda Lee Show.
Okay, welcome back to the Brenda Lee Show. You guys, we have something super exciting this round for the podcast. We have got one of not only my dear friends, but an exceptional leader in the house with us today. Can we please welcome Tanya Unkovich? Tanya, thank you so much for being with us. And I just want to kind of just give a real quick description and scenario of you, your life, where you've been, where you've come from, and where you're headed. Can we go ahead and dive into that?
Absolutely.
All right. So Tanya Unkovich has experienced a ton in life, including being widowed at 40. She made the decision not to let this event break her, however, which for some people, I don't know about you, that's an event that could potentially break some people. She has instead created an exciting vision and made the following leadership decisions that have led her to this point that we're going to dive into, but she's at a pretty exciting point in her leadership development right now in some crazy ways. So over the past 30 years, Tanya has amassed vast professional and life experience. She had a career in finance, and she was interviewed by the state by Dr. Robert Schuller to become, she became Tony Robbins' first coach in New Zealand. Okay, so she's got accolades, she's got a resume. It's pretty awesome what Tanya has accomplished. She is a published author of 4 books. She's a public speaker, personal and business mentor, and she has been featured in numerous publications and is a regular contributor to radio, both nationally and internationally. And of course, this is one of the reasons we chose to have her here internationally as well. Okay, so Tanya wanted to contribute to mankind on an even greater level. This is just an insight into this woman's heart, you guys. She has now decided to enter into the world of politics in New Zealand. So we get to unpack, again, her leadership journey and how she got there a little bit today as we dive in first. So she's going to be running in the next general election with the New Zealand First Political Party. So the next 6 weeks for her are crazy. They're absolutely crazy. And I got to be honest, the fact that she was willing to take the time to jump on this with us is huge, okay? Because her schedule has been absolutely crazy busy, and we are honored to have her here with us today, okay? So on a personal level, Tanya is passionate about her health and fitness and her well-being, and she doesn't mind admitting being slightly obsessed with her ragdoll cat, Thomas. Thomas is probably going to chime into the podcast today, so don't be surprised if you see him. At least we'll probably hear him in the background, right? I never have a conversation with Tanya and don't hear Thomas chatting in the background with us. It's amazing, okay? So he's going to participate in the interview. And Tanya has been married to her greatest fan. And I have met this man, and he is phenomenal, to Grant. And they reside in Auckland, New Zealand currently. Okay. So Tanya, let's just dive in. Like, where you have been the leader of leaders since I've met you. I have known Tanya personally for well over 4 years at this point. We had an instant connection. We met at an event here stateside in California. And that's where I got to meet Grant. And we very instantly just became deep, deep friends. You're one of those people that as you step into your presence, I remember thinking, this is a powerful human being. You carry and exude a poise and a presence that I was like, I have to know that woman. Do you remember that first time that we met at that event?
Yes. Yes, I do actually. And I felt exactly the same way. And I noticed that we just yapped the whole time. We talked, didn't we? It was like, blah, 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 both of us. It was great.
We did. And little did I know at that time, I had no idea of Tanya's background. I had no idea who she was, you guys. All I knew is that this was a phenomenal woman that I wanted to spend more time with. And the more I got to know her and her husband, I don't know about you guys, but I have a whole lot of respect for people whose spouse is respectable as well, right? And this man not only supports the crap out of her, he is just a top shelf human being. And so that just solidified the credibility, if you will, that you instantly gained from me, Tanya. And so I just am thankful that I've been able to spend and do life with you the last 4 years, and we've become deep, deep friends, and we constantly are coaching each other, right? So let's just talk about that a little bit, where, we become the 6th of the top 5 people we hang out with, right? We know that. And there's times as leaders, and I'd love to have you speak into this, where we as leaders don't get led very often, right? We're the ones leading the charge for all the other people. Sometimes we can get on burnout. And I don't know how many phone calls you've gotten from me where I'm in tears and I'm like, oh, I need some help, right? And just talk us through like the importance as leaders to have high level operators around you so that we can encourage each other to keep going.
Well, I think a big thing about that is for us to allow ourselves to reach out for help. So often we think we need to be the one that does everything, and we don't allow ourselves those small periods of time where we fall into a slump and go, actually, I need a bit of help right now. So that was a big lesson for me. I don't know about you, to actually put my hand up and say, hey, I need a little bit of time or help, whatever it is. And it's just filling the cup, isn't it? We cannot lead from an empty vessel. So I've got my trigger points and my moments where I go, gee, my cup is getting a bit light here. I need to top it up. See if Brenda's on speed dial or someone else, you know? So allow yourself to have those human moments where you do need support as well. I can't stress enough how important it is for us to support each other, because that's what keeps the wheel turning, isn't it? We all give each other a little bit of space, a little bit of that nourishment, that food, so that we can then go out and help the masses out there.
Yeah, it's so true. It reminds me, one of your books, From Grief to Greatness, I remember reading through here, and that was, you shared a pivotal moment in this book where you were like, I realize I need help. I can't do this by myself. Right. And so if you don't mind taking us through that journey with your first husband, your late husband, Phil, and how that impacted you and what you learned about yourself through being widowed through that experience.
Gosh, that was a real pivotal moment of my life, as you can imagine. And if anything, it was one of those times where I completely surrendered to life, because I was powerless. And one thing we often do when we're in positions of leadership is we feel we need to control and be in control. But it's not only in positions of leadership, it's so much of the human condition. I need to be in control of this. And this was a moment in my life and in Phil's life where we went, this is out of our hands. There's only so much you can do to keep your body going. But if it is the plan, life's plan, that you leave this earth, then you have to at some point surrender. And whilst I'd had many lessons on acceptance and surrender leading up to this time, it's as if those previous 20 years were the apprenticeship for me to completely surrender when I knew that Phil was going to go. And that was when I went, okay, I chimed in and got all of the help I could get from my friends, but also my strong faith and belief that helped me to go, I'm surrendering to this, and I will trust in the greater plan here. And that if it's his will to pass, then there is something greater for me to achieve. And I don't know what it is right now, but I trust that in time, life will show me what it is that I'm here to do and to use this experience. So I won't lie, I reached out to many, many people during that time. As I wrote in my first book, I had many people who helped me along the way. I needed it. There was no way I could be, have the I'm okay badge. I was okay to say I'm not okay. And that's okay. It didn't make me any less than. If anything, it's given me the strength now to be able to hold others up.
Yeah, I think, but unpack for me that moment of surrender a little bit, because I don't know about you, especially as leaders, like you said, we're generally type A. We are, we control things, we've got the steering wheel. And when we get to that place of where it's like, and it's different for everybody, but I would love for you just to dive a little deeper into that moment of, I cannot do this by myself. I must surrender, where we're white knuckling it. We think we've got it all dialed in. And it's like, okay, I need support. So like I said, if you wouldn't mind just diving a little deeper into that, exactly that moment, in what was it that triggered you into the ultimate surrender, and what made you realize, okay, surrender's what I need to do here right now?
I remember the moment very clearly, actually, and I write about that in my first book, and From Grief to Greatness, and it was the day of Phil's funeral. So leading up to his passing and those first couple of days, you're like a robot in a way. And part of my mission was to help him pass with dignity and to not feel fear. So I was in this robotic state at times. And then on the day of his funeral, before the funeral, I remember looking out my kitchen window at the garden that we created together, and I had this moment of deep despair, but then I came back into myself again. It was as if I left my body, but I came back into myself, and I went as deeply as I could, going, Tanya, there is a purpose here. You have a reason for being here. There is a purpose for your life. Hold it. Know that you don't need to know what it is right now, but just trust. And accept that just for today, you know that there is something out there. You just need to get through this one day. And it was like I was able to live one day at a time for that day, knowing his funeral. I had to get through that day. Just for today, Tanya, be present and trust that there is a purpose. I had this deep knowing. I was looking at all of the vegetables that we planted, say 6 months earlier, and they were still going to keep growing. And I thought,
Right.
so do I need to keep living. I don't know what it looks like quite now, but for today, I'm going to accept and trust that it will unfold. So that was the precise moment.
Yeah. Okay. I did not know that story. I love that. I didn't realize you were likening to the garden, right? And I think that's such a huge thing. You know, we talk about really what the world has just gone through with COVID and the challenge that people are facing with that, and how much we A, had to grow, and B, had to pivot and shift and change. And if we don't mind using this as a segue, like walk us through, because you've been through a lot. You lost both of your parents just within a couple years ago, since COVID has happened.
Yes.
Your parents were dying while COVID was going on. Do you mind sharing what that experience was like for you?
Oh, yeah, that was, I don't know which was worse, going through Phil's passing or my parents, because they were both quite horrific, because during the period of COVID, my parents were both put into a rest home because of their varying degrees of dementia and Alzheimer's, and just the way the world was. We just all got locked down, and they got locked down separately in separate rest homes. So not only were they not together, but we didn't have access to them. Fast forward a year and a little bit, and my father fell ill very suddenly and died 10 days later. Luckily, we were able to bring my parents together into the same rest home so that my mum was actually with him during that time. And then my mum died 8 months later. But in between that, New Zealand locked down quite a lot. We were locking down in and out all the time. So the powerlessness of that was horrendous. And this was where I had to go, Tanya, you must accept this or else you'll go crazy. Because my parents were like my babies all of my life. I didn't have my own children. So as they got older, they were like my children, and they were everything to me. So not being able to help them die with the dignity and the grace that I really wanted for them was one of the most heart-wrenching things for me. It was so horrific that I then had to draw again everything inside me and go, Tanya, you must accept that this is how it is right now, and just do what I could. It is one of those moments again, like that moment in the garden. It's too horrific to feel, but I didn't want to leave the you know how you can so easily leave your body and not feel something. I wanted to still be present with the pain, because I knew if I didn't feel the pain now, it would stay with me later in life, and I would carry it and it would manifest in other areas of my life, and that's not what my parents would want. So yeah, acceptance again. It was acceptance, surrender.
Let's talk about, like what you said, if we and we know this, I know you and I, we talk about this a lot, but a lot of people live day to day stuffing their emotions, right? They're like, nope, don't have the bandwidth. Nope, don't want to deal with it. And I really feel like that's partly what happened with COVID. We're dealing with like the highest suicide rates ever in the history of mankind right now. And I really do believe that that was catapulted by COVID, by the isolation that people felt. We are designed to be in community. And when we step into that space of isolation, what happened is everybody's mind got quiet and they had to face them. The challenge is they didn't have the skill set to do it. So give the audience some skills that you use to feel it and not feel like, 'cause I've had clients, and I'm sure you've experienced this, where they're like, this is too much. I feel like this feeling is literally going to kill me. I can't feel this right now, or I feel like I will literally die. And then the brain kicks in and is like, oh yeah, we better not address that, right? And so your body, literally your brain physically shuts that memory down. Is like, we're not going to address that. So help the audience, give them your best tools of what did you use to be like, no, I am going to sit with this right here. And how did you get through that and over that mountain?
Well, I've lived through not feeling, and I've done that. Many people do it with very different ways. For me, it was using food, the obsession around food, body image, overeating, that I tell the story of in another book. So I've experienced
right here.
that book right there.
It's a phenomenal. This one was awesome. I mean, the things I learned from you, I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know this about her. And we're pretty
Yeah.
good friends.
Well, it is. It's a book where I share how to let go of the food, how to let go of the obsession. And it applies not only to food, but
Right.
also alcohol, drugs, anything that we use to run from the pain, that we use to soothe ourselves. So that journey for me started when I was a teenager. So I've got decades of experience and knowing how bad it feels to annihilate myself with food or for others with any other substance. I know how bad that feels like. I also know how good it feels to not use food or anything else to run from the pain. So I can compare the two. Do I want to feel the pain now, which I know will pass? Or do I want to annihilate myself and then probably be in a brain fog and a sugar coma for about a week later until the next binge? So I have learned the tools on how to make the decision at that pivotal point of going, I will not do that to myself anymore. This is not who I am. So it's very much about building that strong personal foundation of knowing who you are, having certainty in yourself, and knowing that no matter what, how bad this feeling is, you will overcome it. Yeah. I've got experience, so many years of experience of knowing no matter what, Tanya, you have overcome the worst. You can overcome this as well. And we just need to sit with it. And sometimes it feels like having our teeth pulled, but it's not as bad as going back into that pattern of self-abuse, obsession, self-harm, whatever else it is that you do, because the consequences of some of those actions can just lead you into a really dark spiral. There are so many things you can do. Find a support group, make the decision first that no matter what, you will not go down that path. Once you've made that decision, then you will use all of those other tools to help you not go down that road.
Yeah. Well, and I think, I was just talking to somebody earlier today, and I think one of the biggest challenges for people, when you say just make the decision, so many people struggle with they're not going to make the right decision for themselves because they don't feel that they're worthy. They struggle with self-worth. And exactly what you're talking about, the more you do one of these destructive behaviors, the more you erode your confidence in your worthiness, right? So you just think, well, screw it, I'm just going to keep going. But I think it's one of the things that I know you and I have talked about a lot over the years of like, we're not broken. Nothing's wrong with us. We're not broken. So how was it for you that you were able to get to that space when you say you really need to know yourself, you need to know who you are? What did it take for you to get to that level of confidence to say, I'm not broken. I don't deserve to do this. This isn't who I am, despite maybe lies and all the things that people tell us, right? Like you were able to convince yourself, because we have to lead ourselves first always, right? And so how did that work out for you?
I started on that journey of self-worth when I was a teenager. I realized back then that my self-worth was the most important part of the equation.
Yeah.
And I really believe that our feelings about ourselves, our self-worth, is going to be the barometer for the remainder of your life. How you feel about yourself, how you show up in life is going to affect every other area of your life. The pain of not addressing my self-worth is far greater than the pain of whatever it is that we need to go through to address it. And sometimes we need to go through some mucky times in order to come to this place of, yes, I am worthy, I am okay. So this is an area of my life that if ever I feel a bit off, I go, who's showing up right now? Oh, okay, it's Tanya, the little girl, or it's Tanya, the girl who feels a bit disempowered, or Tanya, the woman who's feeling a bit unsure of herself. That's when I go, well, snap out of it, girl, show up as the woman, the entrepreneur, the woman that you know who you are. And that is what actually gets me back into it. In order for me to snap back into that place of certainty, I go back and think of times in my life where I felt complete peace with who I was. Sitting next to Phil during his final breaths, being with my parents during their final breaths. Those are the biggest pivotal moments of my life where I feel that if I was to look back on my life and go, what were some of the greatest things I ever did? Those were the greatest things I ever did that I can feel proud of, that I felt I really showed up for another human being. So I'll go back and remember something like that. And that's what I invite my clients to do. What is a time in your life when you felt absolute peace within yourself and knowing this is who I am and I'm okay with this?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, it's okay to borrow, it's okay to borrow belief from these other experiences. And quite
Mm,
frankly, it's okay to borrow belief from other people. That's where we like circling back on the importance of having quality people around, because we're human. We're going to have those moments where where we do doubt it seems like, there's different parts to us. And I think people think that just because I'm feeling this way right now, people that don't have the ability to emotionally regulate that feeling, it overcomes them and it becomes them, and that becomes their identity, and that's who they are, and they're feeling stuck in that in the moment, instead of realizing that's just a part of you. That part, like you said, can go take a seat right now, because boss Brenda is showing up right now, the one
yeah.
that's insecure, the one that had a crappy marriage, the one that got divorced, that felt all the shame about all those things, like that person gets to sit down right now,
Mm,
because who are we in the moment? Who do we want to show up as? What part of us needs to show up to do that? And then who are we at our core? And so that's a
mm.
really important distinction. And I'm glad you were able to share that with them, because like I said, people just get consumed with it and they just get overwhelmed and they succumb to it.
Yeah. And one of the quickest ways to change that is to just get up and move your body and just
Yeah.
shake it off, and do a little power walk around the house or anything. Just
Yes.
move the body to get that all that other stuff off.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and we talk about that. That's one of the things I do with my clients is like, we build their toolkit. Like when you're in a funk, what for you is going to help you get up and out of it? For some people, it's music. For some people, it's working out. Like I know for you, you love to work out. That's one of the ways that you keep yourself in that state, in that zone, right? I don't
Mm.
love to work out, but I love what I get from it. Right.
Yes, yes,
I just
yes.
did a video on that today. It's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
yeah, some of my friends were like, I posted this post earlier this week that was like, who has ever sat in front of their gym for like 15 minutes trying to talk themselves to get out of the chair, get out of your car and go in there, right? And some were razzing me. They were like, you work out all the time. Like, what the heck, And they were sending me funny memes, and they were hilarious. But the reality is, I don't love to work out. I love
Mm,
what I get from it. I
mm.
love being fit. I love being healthy. I love fitting in my clothes. I love being confident. I love knowing I can run up the stairs with my kids and go play Nerf gun wars with them and not be out of breath. And I've got mobility, but I don't love actually working out, right? Like, it's not like I don't want to go sling iron for an hour, but we do it because we know the benefit. And so having that level of discipline, and I do want to talk about discipline with you. You are one of the most disciplined people I know. And so talk to me how you've cultivated, because you didn't used to be. Like, you go through this book, this story, you are not disciplined at all. There was a time where, just like so many people in our audience, like, we all have moments where we're not disciplined, and you really unlocked a lot of keys to getting super disciplined. So why don't you share with us some of those tips that worked for you?
Well, it was about changing who I am, actually. It was
Yeah.
about that whole self-worth. And it's like, even when we do feel great about ourselves, we do have moments of slipping, right? And I know some people who are incredibly disciplined right now, but then they have a slip and they might go down that spiral. But it is, how long do you stay there?
Yeah.
And so one of the things that really helped me, as I talk about in that book, is I'd slip, but then I'd go, actually, I'm getting back out of here again. And so I would never stay down for too long, a day or two, something like that, but I would make myself. And then eventually it wouldn't be a day or two. It would be that afternoon, I'd get myself back up again.
Yep.
Or it might then be, I've only had a few bites. It hasn't led into a full out binge. Stop it. This isn't who you are. So
Right.
it's about, and then it's just building that muscle, the repetition of breaking that pattern. And that's just actually now ingrained in who I am. I just have this belief that Tanya, the boss lady, as you've just called yourself there, I just get up and do it. I just go. And I've got plenty of time to rest when I'm in my 80s, but for now, I'm going to move. And whatever that looks like, so long as I get up and take action immediately, then I know that eventually I'll get to that outcome that I'm after.
Yeah, I think I love how you first started that, where you were like, it's not really about the discipline, it's about knowing who I am and knowing my
Mhm.
worth, right? And I think that's what's lacking so much for people. People don't believe in themselves. We I mean, shoot, we can't even be right if we want to be straight and married. You know what I mean? Like, we're the society that we live in, nobody can be right about anything. And it just infuriates me. We're stripping away uniqueness in everybody, and it's just not the way that we're designed. There's no two snowflakes that are the same. Even identical twins don't have the same DNA, right? And so giving ourselves permission to be who we are, to be the powerful, authentic, passionate, whatever person that we are, and allowing ourselves to step into that instead of feeling shame for that, right? And so it's really important, like you said, it's all about our being. When we recognize we're like somebody said the other day, they're like, you're like a Maserati. And they're like, when we recognize we're a Maserati, though, we're not putting McDonald's in our body. That's not the fuel that we're putting in. You don't put in regular fuel in a freaking Maserati. You're putting premium, what's the ethanol free? Like, you've got the prime fuel that goes into those vehicles. Well, when we start to value ourselves as that, that's when we make different food decisions. That's when we make different friend decisions, different trajectories in our career. All those decisions change as we grow and we step into that space. So anyway, it's a really good point. I love that you brought that up, because it's really not about the discipline. We do it when we know what we deserve.
And park the Maserati next to the other Maseratis.
Exactly. Yeah. So speaking of that, right? Like, you're in a shift in your career-ish, if you will, right now, life phase, right? So you have chosen to partner, like the fact that this is just a testament, you guys, to Tanya's leadership and how she has led herself and how much she has grown. And can we just say, like, as leaders, we're always growing too. Like, does it ever stop? I don't know about anybody else, but every time I uncover something, it's like there's more in there that we get to grow more about. So in this phase, though, you have chosen to partner with New Zealand's first political party. You guys are doing a bid to get back in. You are the leader of that party is Winston Peters, who's been the longest standing politician in New Zealand for well over 40 years. Is that right?
That's correct. He's got a long political career, an extraordinary man.
Right. And this guy could just kick up his laurels and be like, peace out, I'm done. But he is chosen to step in and fight for New Zealand and for the government in the way that it's structured. And you are joining that party along with him. And so do you mind if we talk about that and explain to us how you got here, what led you here, and how is this expanding your leadership growth that you're in right now?
Well, as they say, if you want to lead an extraordinary life, you've got to, the training never stops, right? You have to keep leveling up and stepping up. And I've had this deep desire to contribute to mankind. So I've done it by coaching individuals. I've done it by appearing on radio, writing numerous articles, and writing my books. That is a big thing for me, to be able to help many people on that deep level. And it was probably about 2.5 years ago that I found I was a bit of a political orphan. I'd voted for the same party all of my life, but everything changed, not only in New Zealand, but in the world. And I was deeply unhappy. And I thought, I just had this deep knowing that this was going to be my journey. But it was back then that I said, okay, Tanya, you've got to do this now. And I attended the conference for New Zealand first, and I just found my political home. So I've quietly just let my coaching run its course a little bit, and I'm only working with a few clients. I've automated all of my coaching programs. My books are now written. The last 2 were written and finished and published this year. And now I have stepped into standing in this next election, which is going to be in the middle of October. So I've been quietly working away at that this year, and in a way preparing myself. So I've had moments of real silence and quiet, interestingly, because I knew that once the campaigning started, it would be crazy. I didn't know what it looked like, because it's definitely a new area for me, but it's also meeting this need for me to really step out of my comfort zone and challenge myself on an even greater level. So the decision is made. I am running in my electorate, which is a local electorate where I live, called Epsom, for the Party of New Zealand First. And we are getting ready to go back into Parliament again and get Winston Peters and his team back in there again, because New Zealand really does need him back. So it's a big journey for me, I won't lie. It's stepping out of my comfort zone, and I'm experiencing things that I haven't experienced before on a professional level, but I'm also loving it, because I just want to be challenged. I'm one of these people who, when I'm at the end of my life, when I'm reflecting back on things, I want to go, gee, I'm really glad I did that. And this is one of those moments in time.
Yeah, I remember when you first talked about this, and there was a moment where you were like, I'm not going to do this. And I was like, I don't know if I buy that. Right. Like, you kind of wavered like for a minute. And if we don't mind just talking about that a little bit of what was the final catapult that put you, I mean, I remember what you said, and I don't know if you remember what you said, but what was the final thing that pushed you over the edge where you're like, I can't not do this? I mean, you literally made the decision. I remember having that conversation. You're like, I can't not, I have to. And so let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, look, it was when I had those moments of wavering, I knew it was fear. I knew it was uncertainty. And I knew that I had to push through that fear and uncertainty. And it was as if I put my big girl pants on and stood into this very empowered state of Tanya, knowing that no matter what is ahead of me, I will deal with it. I just stepped into that identity, you might say, and I created a new identity of Tanya the politician,
Yep.
and it was a very critical moment for me, I believe. Whatever the future holds, I don't know, but I created this identity of Tanya the politician who has certainty. And it was that easy. I just made the decision, you do this. And during those moments of fatigue and, oh, wow, this is tough, I just go, no, Tanya. I think of Winston Peters, who is in his 70s, and he is so energized and so committed, the grit, the tenacity. And I go, Tanya, you get yourself off that chair and go for it. If he can do it, so can you.
Yeah. Well, and that's the mark of a true leader, right? And I think because the reason I want people to hear that is I don't care what role we're in, we have self-doubt. We question, we think, holy crap, am I capable? Am I doing the right thing? I mean, we are all human. The difference though, of what sets us apart from mediocre to effective, exceptional leaders, we make that decision. Like you said, I've decided like, this is who I am. And it really is, people really want to make it really complicated. And it's like, nope, it's really that simple as a decision. You just decide. The brain is a goal achieving machine. I don't know how many times you've heard that under Tony Robbins, right? The brain's a goal achieving machine when our emotions are involved. And when we emotionally, well, tell me why this is so important for you to step up for New Zealand. I'd love to hear.
Well, the first thing that came to my mind, the alternative is to sit on the sidelines and moan about the state of the country.
which you're not a sideline kind of girl.
No, it's like, okay, girl, you get in the arena and do your bit. Yeah. Do your bit for, some people don't have the skill, they can't do it, they've got commitments. And, I often used to say, gosh, why wasn't I blessed with children? Well, I've got time on my hands now, and I have got so much energy and drive to commit to this. I can't not do it. So I don't want to stand on the sidelines anymore. If I do, then I don't have a right to moan about the state of the country and the state of the world. So at least I know I'm rolling my sleeves up and I'm going to go there and do my bit. Yeah. And do it with gusto.
When you say like the state of the country, what is it that you like, if you could say there's one thing that you are so eager to shift for the people of New Zealand? Because I know your heart, you very much care for the people. You've got one of the biggest hearts on the planet. So if there's one thing that you're like, this is not serving our people well, that you hope to shift and hope to create some change in, what would you say that would be?
Unite the people again.
Yeah.
People are divided. Yeah. And you can have the greatest economic policies, you can have the most beautiful, shiny things that you're promising the people of New Zealand, but if they're not united as one nation, one people, then what's the point?
I agree. I agree.
Let's unite the people again.
I agree. And, that really just brings up that whole message of there's so much combativeness with people right now. If you're Black, you can't appreciate white people. If you're white, you can't appreciate Chinese, like Asian people. Like, it's like this whole thing where everybody is just combative, and we've lost our empathy and our acceptance of what, like, let me just say this. If there were 7 billion Brendas on the planet, I would commit suicide and there would be no race left, right? Like, you bring something to the table that I can't bring. We each have
Mm,
our own unique gift. And so this notion of everybody just fighting everyone just blows my mind.
yeah.
There has got to be a shift toward unity, and I feel like it's coming. I don't know about you, but I really feel like there is a great shift among a lot of people, and maybe it's just our circle that we run in. We run with high achievers, high level operators, but everybody's speaking about the same thing, like enough division, enough of it. I don't
Yes.
care if you're different than me. I can still accept you. You don't have to be like me, and you still bring value to the table.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, it has to start within the family, doesn't it? Because
Yes.
if the family's not divided, then the community's not divided, and then the city, the country. I just feel that we all need to just step back, take a breath, and know that without this unity, then things are only going to get worse. There's no alternative now, I feel, than for us to just let go of whatever stories, forgive, and just go, let's do this and let's unite, and together we can make the world a better place. I know it sounds a bit corny, but it's true.
It is true. It is true. I run with a circle that right now where, again, a bunch of entrepreneurs, high achievers, and one of the guys is on a massive mission. He's like, if everybody in this circle that has participated in this, if we really got together for unity, it could
Mm,
radically change the way that the world is operating right now. And so,
yeah.
like I said, it's a thing. It needs to happen. There's no excuse for it. And I would love to kind of even dive in a little deeper what you said, where it starts with the family. And I would even go so far as to say it starts with ourself.
Mm-hmm.
When we have acceptance, back to this whole you know who you are kind of deal, when we have acceptance of who we are and we're confident and we're not insecure. We're not triggered by a transgender. We're not triggered by a gay person. It doesn't trigger us. Like, good
Mm,
for you. Do your thing. That's not my choice. And let's share a meal together. You know what I mean? So
yes.
what would you have to say about that for people being able to get solid in their confidence in who they are?
Well, when you've got that, then you can start leading the way with unity and inviting people to join you. And yes, there are going to be barking dogs along the way, but you cannot focus on those barking dogs. You need to focus on your journey, where you are headed, and those who want to follow you will come. Those who want to bark at you, just let them go, because you don't need those distractions. A true leader with certainty will start gathering their people as they walk towards it. But boy, you need to have strength, because you will have the barking dogs, you will have the naysayers, you will have the people who are going to try and scream you down, but you need to stand in your truth. And if your outcome is to unite the people, then that will give those people on the sidelines who don't have the strength to lead the way to
Mhm.
join you. I
Right.
feel that's very important.
Yeah, that's back to like we can borrow other people's strength. We can borrow other people's certainty. We're okay with it. And other people's confidence. Like, oh, like we see other people being confident in who they are. And somehow that gives permission to be like, oh, I get to be confident in who I am then. It doesn't make you wrong. It doesn't make me right or wrong. We just get to be, right? We get to be what we are. We can be different well, I probably shouldn't say this with you running politics. It's like we can be different political parties and still be friends. It doesn't have to
Absolutely.
mean that like we can't get along and find the common ground. And yeah, there just seems to be such a missing link of empathy. And I think, like I said, I really attribute so much of that to COVID. People got hard during COVID and dark and depressed and angry. There
Yeah.
was this anger that happened. In fact, speaking of angry, I'm kind of angry about this, just even as your friend. But there was an incident when your dad died, like you couldn't even go do his funeral because of COVID. And you had to fight tooth and nail just to see your parents, right? Like that was something to me where it was like they stripped us of our ability. Like, they're dying anyway. Who cares if they get COVID? But there was so much control that was taken from us that we lost our ability to be autonomous. We lost our ability to be ourselves. And I really think maybe that's where a lot of this is stemming from, where people are fighting to get back some ground but in the wrong way, maybe. I don't know. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah. Well, I always say that what lies beneath the anger is often deep grief. And grief is one of the emotions that we don't want to go near because it's too painful.
Oh,
So
girl.
I do feel that so much of the anger out there, if you were to chip away at that, yeah.
That's why everyone, I have said this, and I have said this multiple times. I gift this to my clients, right? Where it's like everybody on the planet needs to read that book. We
Yeah.
all have grief that we don't even realize exists. And this book helps you step through that. Sorry, go
It
ahead.
does. Yeah, well, that's what is often beneath the anger. Its
Yeah.
real name is grief. It's a lot easier to spark out an anger, but I don't know about you, but often after a big burst of anger, what comes is a flood of tears.
Yep. Totally.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so if only we allowed ourselves to grieve and feel the pain, to embrace each other in grief and hold each other during this grief, then a lot of that anger would disappear, and that would then unite the people. No point in trying to fight it all out. None whatsoever.
Right.
Just hold each other, because everyone is suffering, everyone is feeling pain, and everyone is scared, So that is one of the things that I just wish would stop, is so much of the fear that's being driven. And that leads people into those real states of fight or flight, and then the anger and all that. But underneath it is deep grief. And look, one thing with my father, we couldn't bury him. On the day of his funeral, our country was shut down because of one case of COVID. Try and get your head around that. But I had no choice but to feel the pain of it. And it did come. The alternative was to drive myself crazy. The alternative was to drive myself crazy. Looking back, there's nothing I can do to change that. Nothing. What I can do, and what I know my father would want me to do, is to continue to live. Yeah. And he was buried. The only people at the gravesite were the young man who dug the hole, his gravesite, and the funeral director. Those are the only two people who could be at his burial. It's insane, but like I say, I can't stay there. I can't stay back there. I have to keep living. And people before us have suffered great atrocities in life. They've been through world wars and all that, and they have lived to survive it, my parents being some of them. So I'm going to lead by example and say, I will not go there. I will forgive, because that is how we can move forward and how the people can unite again.
Yeah. It's one of the things I love about you. You guys, this is why we're friends. Cause I'm the kind of person that I'm like, I want to be angry still. She's like, really, Brenda? Like, bringing me back, like bringing us back to exactly what you just said, is it boils down to forgiveness, because we all know this. It's like, I have a girlfriend, we say, I know, but tell me again, where we know we need to forgive. We know that forgiveness really only hurts us. And it shuts down exactly what you said, those opportunities for unity and trust and collaboration and coming back together as people that, okay, this happened. It was a mess. Now, how do we move forward? Where are we going? Where do we want to go? And how do we get there?
Yeah. Yeah. And part of my driver for politics is to lead the way to unity. But hey, it does mean forgiveness. It doesn't mean getting into the ring and fighting your political partners, the way it can get ugly. That's not who I am. I'm going to stand here and march forward and say, this is who I am. This is what I represent. I'm inviting you to follow me. I'm not into the barking dogs that are going to probably come out and try and bite me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they're always there. I talk a lot about the crabs in a pot story, right? Like, do you know that with fishermen? So for our viewers, if you guys haven't heard me or people say this before, there was this fisherman and then a layman on the beach with the fisherman, somebody like me that doesn't know how to do fishing or anything. You're in New Zealand, so you guys got a boat and you got all this dialed. So yeah, you know what this is. But for somebody like me, there's the fisherman pulled in all these buckets of crabs, and they literally had 5-gallon buckets and they're filled with crabs. And as this guy was walking by, he was like, sir, like telling the fisherman that crab is about ready to get out and over that bucket and get out and over the bucket. And the fisherman's like, no, just wait, just watch, just wait and see what happens. Soon as that crab's ready to crest the edge of the bucket, all those other crabs reach up and pull them back down. Like, if we can't get out, you can't get out either, right? And that's that animosity and that fighting. That's that spirit of, I don't desire forgiveness and unity and joy and love and in the things that you're fighting for your country. They desire the fight, and they desire the control, and they desire you to stay low, to stay down where they're at. And it's just it's an icky place. Like, that's hard. Those are the barking dogs.
Yeah, well, love them, but that's not who I am.
Right. Yes.
You know, and see you later.
Yeah. And
if you want to follow me, it may take you a while to make the decision to follow me, but I'll be here waiting for you.
Right.
That's the attitude to have, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't see why it would take a long time to follow you. I was following you first time I had laid eyes on you. I was like, that girl's got power and grace. You have just such a, you have such a presence about, I've referenced you so many times in that regard, where there's just this poise, this power, but yet a softness and a kindness and a love. It's all the things. It's like a beautiful power. It's not I'm going to railroad you. I don't know. You've always been difficult to explain to people. I'm like, I don't know. She's just amazing.
Well, we can lead with grace.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't need to be aggressive. It doesn't need to be forceful. It can be graceful, yet still powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're so good at that. You're so good at that. So, okay. So we've unpacked, there's these 2 books that you guys can find Tanya at, and she's also written the book, The Unplanned Journey. And she also has a workbook of that book as well. That goes along with that book as well. Yeah, there they are. Thank you. I couldn't find mine. Because I've read all her stuff. You guys, if you everybody really needs to read this Grief to Greatness. And honestly, even this one as well, right? The food, it's not about the food. It's about any addiction that you have in any way. And we all have them. Every single person on the planet has an addiction. People who say, oh, I don't have that. And you liar, like you're totally lying, right? The facts are we all do. And so they're just so helpful. So Tanya, tell us where people can find you. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the people? But most importantly, how can we follow along your journey and find you and support you?
Yeah, well, look, I'm all over social media. So you can find me on Facebook. You can find me on LinkedIn. Politically, I've got a political Facebook page as well. I'm on Twitter. That's a bit of a political one as well. Now, my website, tanyaunkovich.com. So people can't often spell that. It's TANYAUNKOVICH.com. There's lots of resources there for you. My YouTube channel has got a lot of interviews. So I've done many interviews over the years on grief, on food issues. So there is so much there that you can find. I think I've got over 300 videos there. So plenty there for you to help yourself along with. And but look, you know, if you Google me, you'll find me.
Yeah. Yeah. And we'll post a link here too for you guys too. And, you know, it's funny you just brought that up about the grief. I remember I was working with a corporate client and with this team, and I called Tanya in they had lost somebody overnight. So a team member, and I had called Tanya in to work with them specifically over the grief, because you just have an ability to work with people and teams over grief in ways that, yeah, it's just amazing. So yep, you can find her at TanyaUnkovich.com. And like I said, we'll post that link. But Tanya, I can't tell you how much I appreciate your time. I know that your time is incredibly valuable right now. And the fact that you're willing to give my people and just pour into my people that aren't even in your country, like they're clear across the globe. You just have such a big heart. I really appreciate you giving us your insights of such a leader that I respect so much. And I just value and appreciate you in ways that words never really could say. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share. So it's my pleasure. It's been great.
Yeah.
And Thomas is quiet. I think Thomas is having a nap.
We didn't hear Thomas. This is the first conversation with you I've ever had. I committed to the audience they were going to hear from Thomas, and he doesn't show up. Like, what the heck? Thomas is fired. No. Yeah. All right. Well, you guys, if you know of anybody who could really benefit from hearing what we had shared today, please share the podcast, share the YouTube video, make sure you subscribe to our channel and like the videos. That keeps us going, that gives us feedback and lets us know how we can best support you in your leadership journey. And we will see you on the other side.